Hey, welcome to Girl Meets World episode review, episode called Girl Meets Popular. Um, what can I say? This episode was actually deeper than I thought it would be in a lot of sense. Let's just say that, first of all, one thing I've noticed now more than ever is that the show, the classroom setting sets basically the entire premise, if you could follow that. For example, in this one, the story of Damocles is used as basically the foundation for the whole story. This episode, essentially, be what you want to be, not be what you are expected to be, or something like that. Basically, our story starts with Maya and Riley expecting invitations to a popular kid party, and as Riley put it, a cute hipster is walking around handing out invitations. A mysterious, quiet hipster is about to hand Maya out an invitation, but instead hands it to Riley. And, well, Riley does the popular walk, as she puts it. Meanwhile, as we move on to the story, we finally get a little bit more interaction with Augie and Topanga, which, sadly, the two characters that aren't getting, or were not getting, as much exposure as everybody else. But this time around, it's Augie continues to want to go to this Ukrainian coffee shop or Ukrainian bakery, where we are pleasantly surprised with the presence of Cloris Leachman as the Ukrainian owner. And of course, as always, she's lovely and wonderful and a great character actor, and she just lights up my day when I see her. She was fantastic in, was it Raising Hope as Mama? And I really hope that she continues to be a regular character on the show because she makes every show that she's in better. Anyways, we find out that this corporation wants to take over the building and are basically trying to force her out of her business. This fancy frozen yogurt shop, as she puts it, wants her out. And Topanga being a lawyer, Augie asked her to, basically take them on and rectify the situation. Unfortunately, you're clued in that Topanga's firm that she works for is responsible for this particular action. So she's conflicted with doing what she feels is the right thing and what she's obligated to do as an employee. Our story continues with Corey in the classroom finding out about the boy-girl party that Riley's invited to. And of course, in typical Corey fashion, no. You're not going. You're not going. No. I have to say that I haven't encountered this just yet, but the boy-girl party thing it makes me a nervous wreck. But, what I love about the show is that you've got to let your kids be themselves, and you've got to trust that you have done a good enough job as a parent to let them grow up. And it's essentially true for life. You have to, at some point, start letting that leash of life loosen up a little bit. Not all the way, but you get what I'm saying. Essentially, we show up at the party, and Maya, for some reason, is acting very awkward, and you go have fun, kiddo. I'm not mad that I didn't get invited, but Corey is a nervous wreck. When the doors open, it's the party host is none other than Farkle. Of course, Corey absolutely loving it because it turns out to be a nerd party or geek party or whatever you want to put it. And the quiet hipster turns out to be two of Farkle's friends under a coat. Which, pretty good effect, guys. That was a good camera effect they used. Here's where I started to get upset with the episode until I wasn't so much upset, just kind of like, oh great, here comes the Disney cheese that we've been fearing. The nerdy geek kids were represented as very, we don't know what to do with girls around, huh? Typical Disney fashion. And it kind of bothered me a little bit because not all geeks and nerds are like that. neither in high school, junior high, or elementary school. Some of us were just normal kids that, happen to like these things. And, we weren't all wearing glasses and super awkward. I'm telling you, one freaking kid, especially a boy, who's barely turning 11 or 12 and is not awkward around girls. It's a 1 out of 10 kids, maybe, that has natural charisma to work with. So, it's funny how geeks and nerds get labeled in this way in a lot of different shows. But regardless, that's not what we're here for. We're here for the review. Riley, of course, gets the hanging sword over her head, or the hanging lightsaber, like Damocles. And, as Farco put it, you're popular among us. You may not realize that you're a geek or a nerd, but you are, and you're popular among us, and we like you, and we would love you if you were our queen, is what he says. And we all know, if you've been watching the show, Farco has an obsession with both Riley and Maya beyond repair. The boy is damaged. What's interesting is that she chooses to embrace the the inner geek and nerd. The problem, and this is again where I kind of got a little bit bothered by the episode, but eventually it rectified. She shows up as a very American Harajuku girl. If you don't know what that is, quick explanation. Harajuku is a town in Japan where the girls of that town basically develop their own unique style that's just for them. That expresses them as themselves. You may have seen them a lot with Gwen Stefani. She carries her Harajuku entourage with her. And Avril Lavigne's latest music video, which just, I think it's called Hello Kitty, which is horrible music and horrible video, but still, a lot of the girls from that video are supposed to represent the Harajuku lifestyle. And of course, Riley shows up in a very colorful wig and pants and such. But the problem for me more wasn't so much the outfit, although the outfit played a big part in it, is that because she suddenly chose to embrace the inner geek or nerd, she started purposely acting awkward, diving her face into a book and reading super close and acting really awkward and making ha sounds like Farkle does. And it was one of those things where, like, you can still embrace your inner geek and nerd. You don't have to exaggerate your looks or exaggerate your behavior. So at this point, I was starting to think that the show may have started to lose its luster, because now it's taking on the Disney cheese that we all hate, or at least I hate, in typical Disney family shows. Meanwhile, we got Topanga, who's, finally looking at herself in the mirror and finally sees old Topanga, old crimped hair, hippie kind of girl that we all fell in love with years ago. And she starts talking to herself and realizing that she can still be herself. She can still be true to herself and do her job. She just has to remember why she started doing it, why she wanted to be an attorney. And when Corey comes up behind her, we have a quick flashback to Corey and Topanga at age 10, which, this is what I love about this show. How many shows could do that? Go back 10 years for the characters and still see from the and I'm not talking soap operas where actors stay on for 20, 30 years. I'm talking a show that ended and a show that started with a new generation, but you can still go back and see the old, the parents who were parents and are now kids, and having these moments that were scripted so long ago and fit in so well now. And I'll admit it made me reminisce a little bit, like, oh, I remember that episode so well. I remember where I was at the time. And it was great to see her in the old hippie outfit. It was cute. Meanwhile, we still have Riley and Maya trying to convince Riley that she doesn't need to be a nerd or a geek and dress the way she's dressing. She just needs to be true to herself. Which, again, the Damocles story continues to play in for both stories this time. Eventually, Maya just becomes the queen of all nerds, basically, and agrees to be in a spelling bee in order to win the respect of her peers, all 5 of them. Meanwhile, Topanga decides to go fight the good fight and help out the Ukrainian bakery stay open, threatening to quit her job, or sorry, not threatening to quit her job, asking that they do the right thing, and she suddenly goes into her happy place, hands together, formation with the leg, which can't do now, and just stays there. And of course, Augie plays a big role in this episode, and he's, again, the kid is getting more exposure, which I like. I enjoy his pieces. He's kind of plays a straight man in a very goofy family. Now finally we come to the conclusion with Riley's story arc, where she is in the middle of a spelling bee, and as Corey's about to give her word, Maya jumps in with her plan, which is simple. Spell the word Harajuku. If you're as true a geek or a nerd as you claim you are, and you are going to use the Harajuku lifestyle as your thing, you should be able to spell it, right? No, she couldn't. Proving that she can't, she's not she's not being true to herself. And the funny thing is that right before the spelling bee, we had a crossover between Riley and Topanga, both of them looking at each other like, so what's this about? Topanga put it pretty simple. It's the me that your father fell in love with many, many years ago. And she goes, and you? It's the me that I am now. People love me. And she says, Topanga simply puts it, but do you love you? Do you love who you become? And I think when the Harajuku question came up, is where the show actually redeemed itself again for me. Because that's when they explained Harajuku is actually a town and all that I gave you. And here's the thing. For me, geek culture is a very important thing that I hold dear. I follow my... I try and keep things right for my community. I don't do well in groups where bullying is a tactic to intimidate and control people. I also don't like people who fake being who they claim they are simply to fit in or get attention from people. It's one of those things where if you want to be into something, be true to it. Follow through. Know it. Love it. Be it. Don't just conveniently like it when it's time for certain people to show up in your life. Doctor Who is one of those things I love. And I always tell people, I didn't watch much of the original show, and I don't care much for the original show. So I don't act like I know much about what happened in the original show, though I am familiar enough with the history of the characters to be able to understand when somebody's talking about the old series. So in the case of the Harajuku incident, Riley stepped down and realized that she wasn't being true to herself. Then you had Topanga go confront her boss one more time, and this time with a checkbook in hand and her power suit, if you want to say, and told her, unless you agree to give me a payday advance to allow this bakery to get enough money to help me keep this bakery open, I will go to your competition and I will destroy you. Which is a way, I didn't expect that to happen. I really thought that Topanga would quit her job and we would have this weird, oh, we're going to use the bakery as a new setting because that's where Topanga's now going to be working every day. No, instead we went, Topanga stood her ground and stick to her to her guns, and her boss had no choice but to agree. He knew that he couldn't find anybody to replace her, and as Corey put it, you'll never find anyone else like her. And so yeah, that's basically our episode. The one thing I will say is, I kind of hate that. It took me the next episode to realize that, or at the end after the end of the episode to realize that Lucas was not in the episode at all. It took me the preview for the following episode to realize, hey, where was Lucas? He wasn't even in the classroom, which is awkward. And I'll get into that later on, but it's awkward not to have one cast member missing when it's a pretty core cast, and still weird to me. But anyways, so that's it for this week's review. I say that once again, the show redeems itself in its own way. It's still a lovely show, and it's still very family friendly. I was fearful that the Disney cheese made its way into the scripts, but they managed to redeem it and make it as solid a part of the story as anything else. And I'm loving the fact that if you know your history, or your not so much your history, but your mythology and such, the show can kind of tells you right from the beginning how this should turn out. So great job once again for the Michael J. Cubs production company. They keep it true to the original, and the quality continues to stay at par. So with that, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.